Welcome to this year's update from Engelsfors Drambo Model Railway. As you know, a model railway will never be completed. New ideas suddenly appears. New locos or wagons need to be built or rebuilt. Ideas of adding new lines and sections will appear, or perhaps a previously built environment needs to be rebuilt for some odd reason. Just like in this year's project, here at Drambo Station, where I now thought it was time to rebuild some of the areas. But before we take a more detailed look at what I've done this year, I'll show you some pictures of the last morning trains passing the old station before it will be closed for reconstruction.
A container train passes at Skultuna station in the early morning light, heading for Drambo works. The local train towards Engelsfors has to wait for clear track before departure. We can now take a closer look at the area to be rebuilt. When the section was built, Drambo were only meant to be a small community with low passenger traffic and where a small station house was enough. As time passed, new functions were added to sections around Drambo that motivated a far larger version of the station buildings. The area at the long-abandoned station house was mismanaged and turned into a scrapyard, which annoyed the N-scale people down at the layout. And the local N-scale politicians argued for a redesign of the area with buildings and functions that more reflected the size of the growing community. The debate went on for years, and just like in the full-scale world, they were overwhelmed by a large number of ever more amazing and fancy design proposals without any regard to finances and real needs. But suddenly, all previous ideas were rejected, and preparations began for an alternate solution, probably only possible in the modeling world. Instead of spending millions on a new fancy travel center, a time slot should be created around the station area and turn back the time to around 1900 and let the building contractors of that time build a right-sized station already from the start. Now, let's take a closer look at what actually happened in that misty cloud. The prototypes for the 4 models that were built are buildings from the station area at Krampen on the Krylbo-Frövi line. Measurements have been made both on site at Krampen and at still standing similar sister buildings further north along the line at Karbending station. The 3 smaller houses were built using the same method, but with a small exception. The frame of the toilet building is instead 3D printed and combined with the ventilation tower to better highlight the patterns on the valve covers and the small slate roofs. The goods shed on the other side of the yard, which was built 10 years ago as a temporary paper model, is finally to be replaced with a more detailed model. The prototype is a goods shed at Grängesberg station, and here I once again changed methods. All parts except the roof are now 3D printed. The model was too big to print as one piece with a resin printer, so it was split in two parts and with separate roof trusses, then painted with airbrush and with small brushes for the details in an ordinary manner. Time for the last finishing tasks before the station can be open again for the Pricer people next morning. First, we have to move the construction sector's lift vehicle to clear the tracks for the arriving passenger trains, where a local X50 train will arrive at track 1. A couple of oncoming regional trains make a stop at the platform before the local train can return, heading for Engelsfors via Skultuna. On the main line, a long-distance train crosses the bridge on its way to Engelsfors and further away.